Most people assume that survival in medieval Europe depended primarily on harvest yields, strong walls, or the outcome of battles. Grain stores, not firewood stacks, tend to dominate our imagination of winter security. But across much of northern and central Europe, families did not freeze because they lacked timber. They froze because they misunderstood how to prepare it. A poorly stored woodpile could reduce usable heat by half, fill homes with choking smoke, and quietly turn an adequate fuel supply into a lethal liability. In regions where winter temperatures hovered below freezing for months, firewood was not simply a resource. It was a carefully managed system, one that required timing, architecture, airflow, and discipline. The science behind that system was rarely written down. It was transmitted through practice, habit, and community memory. And when that knowledge broke down, through war, plague, migration, or simple neglect, the consequences were immediate. To understand how medieval families survived harsh winters, we need to look not at the hearth itself, but at the quiet geometry of the woodpile outside. Medieval survival depended on understanding that wood is a living material long after it is cut. Freshly cut wood can contain more than half its weight in water. In damp climates, such as those of England or the forests of the Holy Roman Empire, timber felled in autumn would remain saturated well into winter. Burning such wood, well, it wasted energy evaporating moisture before actually producing usable heat. It produced thick, smoke-heavy soot accumulation and, honestly, some pretty dangerous chimney blockages. Medieval communities understood this empirically, even if they didn't have our modern measurements of moisture content. Wood was cut at specific times of year, often late winter or early spring, when sap content was lower. Trees were sometimes girdled months before felling, interrupting sap flow and beginning the drying process while still standing. In some regions, oak and beech were left to season for 1 or even 2 years before heavy winter use. This was not inefficiency. It was insurance. The difference between seasoned and green wood determined whether a household could maintain steady heat through January or exhaust its supply before Candlemas. A family that misjudged this timing faced not dramatic catastrophe but something slower and more dangerous: steadily declining interior temperatures, rising illness, and dwindling options. Stacking wood properly was just as important as, cutting it at the right time. Contrary to the popular image of a haphazard woodpile leaning against a cottage wall, medieval wood storage actually followed consistent principles. Logs were split to expose the internal grain, which dramatically accelerated drying. They were raised off the ground on stones or rails to prevent ground moisture from wicking upward. Stacks were aligned to the prevailing winds, allowing steady airflow to carry moisture away. In parts of Scandinavia, wood piles were constructed with interlocking corner supports, creating stable, breathable towers. In the German-speaking regions of Central Europe, carefully stacked rows were often positioned along south-facing walls, capturing solar warmth while remaining shielded from northern winds. That positioning alone could mean the difference between dry fuel and mold-softened timber. Archaeological evidence from rural settlements shows repeated rebuilding of raised wood platforms, indicating that this was not just some incidental practice. It was actually maintained infrastructure. The woodpile was treated almost like a secondary structure, planned, protected, and, carefully monitored. Covering wood incorrectly could, honestly, destroy an entire season's supply. One of the most persistent misconceptions about firewood is that it should be fully covered to protect it from rain. But medieval practice suggests a more nuanced understanding. Completely enclosing wood actually trapped moisture and slowed evaporation. Instead, families often covered only the top of the stack, leaving the sides exposed to wind. Roofs built over wood storage areas extended just far enough to deflect rainfall while preserving airflow. In wetter climates, simple lean-to structures were attached to barns, open on multiple sides. The aim was not waterproofing, but balance shield from direct precipitation, maximize circulation. So, inadequate ventilation led to fungal growth, rot, and insect infestation. Wood compromised in this way did not simply burn poorly, it actually burned unpredictably, producing uneven heat and, honestly, excessive smoke inside homes that already lacked modern chimneys. In structures with central hearths and open smoke vents, thick smoke accumulation could blacken rafters and irritate lungs throughout the winter months. Firewood storage was inseparable from architecture and heating technology. The design of medieval homes evolved alongside fuel management strategies. The transition from central open hearths to sidewall fireplaces with chimneys in late medieval Europe increased heating efficiency but also required drier fuel. Chimneys drew air upward more forcefully, meaning wet wood cooled flues rapidly and reduced draft strength. In regions influenced by masonry stove traditions, such as those later refined in Eastern Europe, wood needed to burn hot and clean to heat thermal mass effectively. These adaptations influenced settlement planning, woodland management, and even feudal regulation. During periods of warfare, fuel logistics became a silent determinant of survival. Military campaigns disrupted agricultural production, but they also disrupted fuel preparation cycles. Armies marching through rural territories frequently seized stored firewood along with grain. Civilians caught in contested regions lost carefully seasoned reserves overnight. The experience of prolonged conflict during the 100 Years' War demonstrates this clearly. Rural depopulation and scorched earth tactics destroyed the patient, multi-year preparation of fuel supplies. Centuries later, during the 30 Years' War, survivors faced winters without seasoned fuel, leading to increased mortality from exposure and respiratory illness. Medieval coppicing systems reveal a sophisticated understanding of renewable fuel cycles. In cities, failure affected not just one household, but entire neighborhoods. Municipal ordinances in late medieval cities addressed spacing, stacking height, and distance from walls to manage fire risk and air quality. The forgotten science of firewood storage kept medieval families alive not because it was mysterious, but because it was methodical. It required patience in spring, vigilance in summer, and restraint in autumn. If you value examining the deeper mechanics that sustained societies through hardship, subscribe to Hidden in History and share this video with others who appreciate careful, grounded historical analysis.